The year is 2026. Forensic technology has advanced beyond anything our predecessors could have imagined. DNA that once seemed impossible to extract can now be read from a single cell. Cold cases that went silent for decades are being cracked open every day. And yet, there are some doors that refuse to open. Some mysteries that remain sealed as tightly as the luxury suites where they unfolded. Tonight, we aren't just looking at history. We're using 2026 forensic standards to reopen the doors of the Ritz, the Chateau, and the Cecil. We're stripping back the velvet curtains of luxury suites to expose the cold, forensic reality of icons found breathless behind double-locked doors. From blood-stained sheets in Art Deco towers to toxic whispers in high-rise penthouses, we're investigating 7 of the most haunting hotel room deaths in history. Cases where the evidence didn't add up, where the official rulings left more questions than answers. The Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, the Beverly Hilton, the Chateau Marmont, the Cecil Hotel, the Swissôtel in Bangkok, the Ritz in Paris, the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. These aren't just places to sleep. They're crime scenes frozen in time, holding secrets that even 2026's technology hasn't been able to unlock. Behind each of these doors lies a story, a life cut short, a mystery that refuses to die. So pull the curtains closed, lock your own door, and join me as we walk the haunted halls of 7 hotels where guests checked in, but never checked out. These are the cases that 2026 still can't solve. January 9th, 2022. The Ritz-Carlton, Orlando. Bob Saget was 65 years old, a comedian who had spent decades making America laugh. From his iconic role as Danny Tanner on Full House to his riotous stand-up specials, Saget was beloved by millions. He was in the middle of a stand-up tour, performing to sold-out crowds across the country. On January 8th, he performed in Jacksonville, Florida. The show was a success. He tweeted afterward, "I had no idea I did a 2-hour set tonight. I'm happily addicted again to this shit." That night, he checked into room 962 at the Ritz-Carlton, Orlando. The next afternoon, January 9th, Saget's family hadn't heard from him. They contacted the hotel and asked security to check on him. At approximately 4 p.m., a hotel security officer entered room 962. Inside, he found Bob Saget lying on his bed, unresponsive. He was facing upward, his left arm across his chest, his right arm at his side. He was fully clothed. Paramedics arrived and pronounced him dead at the scene. There were no signs of trauma, no signs of struggle. Nothing seemed out of place. But then the autopsy report came back. And that's when the questions began. The Orange County Medical Examiner's Office determined that Bob Saget died from head trauma. Specifically, blunt force trauma to the back of his head. He had a fracture at the base of his skull, as well as fractures around his eye sockets and bleeding on his brain. The official ruling, accidental death. The theory, Saget must have fallen backwards in his hotel room, hit his head on something hard, and never woke up. But here's where the internet sleuths, as your YouTube comments call them, have raised questions that 2026 still hasn't fully answered. If he fell in the main area, how does a man fall backwards on carpeted flooring and suffer a fracture at the base of his skull so severe that it kills him? And if in the bathroom, how does he hit his head hard enough to fracture his eye sockets without leaving any blood at the scene, without disturbing anything in the room? The autopsy report noted that Saget had COVID-19 at the time of his death, an asymptomatic case. It also noted that he had an enlarged heart, but neither of those things caused the head trauma. The theory proposed by investigators, Saget may have fallen in the bathroom, hit his head on the marble, then gotten up, walked to the bed, laid down, and never woke up. But if that happened, where was the blood? Where was the evidence of that fall? Here's another detail that fuels the speculation. There's a gap in the timeline. Saget's last known communication was late on January 8th. He wasn't found until 4 p.m. on January 9th. That's approximately 18 unaccounted hours. Hotel surveillance footage from that night and morning has never been released. The hotel cited privacy concerns. But for those who believe something more happened, the missing footage is a glaring red flag. Saget's family has accepted the official ruling. They've asked for privacy and for speculation to cease. But on YouTube, in true crime forums, in comment sections across the internet, the questions persist. In 2026, 4 years after Bob Saget's death, the official cause remains accidental blunt force trauma. No foul play has ever been suggested by law enforcement. No suspects have ever been named. But for those who look at the evidence, the carpeted room, the severe fracture, the missing footage, the unaccounted hours, the questions remain. How did America's dad die alone in that hotel room? And why do the details still not quite add up? As one of our viewers wrote in the comments, the blunt force trauma in a carpeted room remains a massive point of discussion for internet sleuths. And in 2026, that discussion continues. June 4, 2009, Bangkok, Thailand. David Carradine was 72 years old, an actor whose career spanned 5 decades. He was Bill in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films. He was Kane in the iconic TV series Kung Fu. He was a Hollywood legend. Carradine was in Bangkok filming a movie called Stretch. On the evening of June 3rd, he had dinner with friends and colleagues. He seemed in good spirits. He returned to his suite at the Swissôtel Nylert Park Hotel. The next morning, when he didn't show up for work, a hotel maid was sent to check on him. David Carradine was found dead in his hotel room closet. He was naked, hanging by a rope, a cord tied around his neck, his wrists, and his genitals. The scene suggested autoerotic asphyxiation, a dangerous practice that involves restricting oxygen for sexual pleasure. The Thai police ruled it accidental death. Case closed. But Carradine's family, and millions of fans around the world, refused to accept that explanation. Carradine's family hired renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, host of HBO's Autopsy, to conduct an independent examination. Baden's conclusion: there was no evidence of suicidal intent. Instead, Baden suggested that Carradine may have died during a solitary sexual practice that went terribly wrong. But Baden also noted something else. There were inconsistencies in the Thai police investigation. The scene hadn't been properly secured, evidence hadn't been properly collected, and there were rumors, whispers, that Carradine may have been involved with something darker. Almost immediately, theories emerged that Carradine's death wasn't accidental at all. Some pointed to his involvement in martial arts circles. Others suggested he may have run afoul of local underworld figures, a theory that has never been proven but refuses to die. A Thai tabloid published graphic crime scene photos, images that the Carradine family fought desperately to keep out of circulation. Privacy law expert John Mills, who advised the families of Gianni Versace and Dale Earnhardt in similar situations, explained that the family's fight was about dignity. The harm to the family was quite real, he said. The Carradine family, through attorney Mark Garagos, threatened to sue anyone who published the photos in the United States. They succeeded in keeping the most graphic images from becoming public. In 2026, 17 years after David Carradine's death, the official cause remains accidental asphyxiation. But the questions persist. Was it autoerotic asphyxiation gone wrong? A tragic accident that took a beloved actor too soon? Or was it something else? Something involving people who didn't want Carradine to leave Bangkok alive. The Thai police closed the case. The family accepted Dr. Baden's findings. But online, in true crime communities, the speculation continues. David Carradine checked into the Swissôtel Nylert Park Hotel on June 3, 2009. He never checked out, and the full truth of what happened in that closet may never be known. February 11, 2012, the Beverly Hilton Hotel. Whitney Houston was 48 years old, one of the greatest singers in music history. Her voice had defined an era, from "I Will Always Love You" to "I Want to Dance with Somebody." She was a superstar without equal. It was Grammy weekend in Los Angeles. The music industry had gathered for its biggest night. Houston was scheduled to perform at a pre-Grammy party hosted by music mogul Clive Davis, the man who had discovered her. On the afternoon of February 11th, Houston's bodyguard found her in room 434 of the Beverly Hilton. Whitney Houston was unresponsive in the bathtub. She was pulled from the water, and paramedics attempted CPR, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. The official cause of death: accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use as contributing factors. The coroner found cocaine in her system, as well as other drugs. The theory: she had a heart attack or heart-related episode while in the tub, slipped under the water, and drowned. But from the very beginning, the toxic whispers and forensic reality of that hotel scene have fueled numerous cover-up theories. Here's what troubles investigators who've looked deeper. The scene in room 434 was chaotic. There were prescription bottles scattered around. There were signs of drug use. But there were also things that didn't add up. Houston's body was found face down in the tub. The water was warm, according to reports. Not hot, not cold, but warm. The tub had been filled to a level that would have allowed her to sit comfortably. But the autopsy revealed that Houston had significant atherosclerosis, narrowing of the arteries, and had used cocaine shortly before her death. The combination of cocaine use and heart disease can cause dangerous heart rhythms. The official theory: she had a cardiac event, lost consciousness, and drowned. Yet for those who believe in a cover-up, the questions are different. Who supplied the cocaine? Who was with her in those final hours? And why did it take so long for someone to find her? In the hours before her death, Houston had been seen acting erratically. She was loud, aggressive at times, behavior that those close to her recognized as signs of drug use. She had been arguing with members of her entourage. At 12:15 p.m., a member of her staff called her room and spoke to her. She sounded fine, they said. Around 2:30 p.m., her bodyguard found her in the tub. That's a gap of more than 2 hours. What happened in those 2 hours? Some theories suggest that someone may have been with her, someone who left before the bodyguard arrived. Others point to the possibility that drugs were supplied to her by people who should have been protecting her. Whitney Houston's death sent shockwaves around the world. But the tragedy didn't end there. 3 years later, her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, was found face down in a bathtub in a nearly identical scenario. She died months later without ever regaining consciousness. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Mother and daughter, both found in bathtubs, both dying from complications of drowning and drug use. In Bobby Christina's case, her boyfriend was investigated but never charged. In 2026, 14 years after Whitney Houston's death, the official cause remains accidental drowning. No one has ever been charged with any crime related to her death. But the whispers, the questions about what really happened in room 434 of the Beverly Hilton, continue. Whitney Houston checked into the Beverly Hilton on February 9, 2012. She never checked out. And for millions of fans, the circumstances of her death will never quite feel resolved. January 10, 1971. The Ritz, Paris. Gabrielle Coco Chanel was 87 years old, one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. She had revolutionized women's fashion, creating a style that was both elegant and liberating. Her brand, the interlocking C's, the little black dress, Chanel No. 5, had become synonymous with luxury itself. For more than 30 years, Chanel lived at the Ritz, Paris. Her suite was her home, her sanctuary, her kingdom. She held court there, receiving visitors, directing her empire, and guarding the secrets of her extraordinary life. On the afternoon of January 10th, Chanel was in her suite preparing for a fashion show, the next day's presentation of her latest collection. She'd been working, as always, right up to the end. Around 2 p.m., she told her maid, "You see, this is how you die." Those were reportedly her last words. Shortly after, Chanel suffered a heart attack and died in her suite at the Ritz. The official cause of death was natural causes, a heart attack at an advanced age. No autopsy was performed. No investigation was launched. The grande dame of fashion had simply passed away. But for those who study Chanel's life and the secrets she carried to her grave, the questions linger. Coco Chanel's life was filled with secrets. During World War II, she had an affair with a German intelligence officer Hans Gunther von Dinklage. She engaged in activities that, after the war, led to accusations of collaboration with the Nazis. She was arrested and interrogated but never charged, thanks, some say, to intervention from Winston Churchill himself. These secrets, the true extent of her wartime activities, her connections to powerful figures, the deals she made to protect herself and her empire, died with her in that suite at the Ritz. Was her death simply a heart attack at 87? Almost certainly. But the timing, just before a major fashion show, just as she was preparing to unveil another collection, has always felt significant. And the suite itself, room 408, became a shrine. The Ritz has preserved it as it was, a time capsule of Chanel's life and work. But the secrets she kept, the ones that could have rewritten history, are forever sealed. In 2026, Coco Chanel's death is not considered suspicious. She was 87 years old. She died in her home of 3 decades. The cause was natural. But for our series, for the theme of hotel room deaths with lingering questions, Chanel's story adds the luxury suite and Art Deco flair that makes these cases so compelling. Her final breath in that elegant room, surrounded by the empire she built, carries the weight of a life filled with secrets. Coco Chanel lived at the Ritz Paris for over 30 years. On January 10, 1971, she finally checked out, and the full truth of her extraordinary, secret-filled life went with her. March 5, 1982. The Chateau Marmont, Los Angeles. John Belushi was 33 years old, one of the most famous comedians in America. From Saturday Night Live to the Blues Brothers to Animal House, Belushi had revolutionized comedy. He was a force of nature, impossible to contain. By 1982, Belushi was deep in the throes of drug addiction. He'd been using heavily for years, and friends had tried to intervene. But the machine of fame kept moving, and Belushi kept using. In the days leading up to his death, Belushi had been staying in Bungalow 3 at the Chateau Marmont, a secluded private space that had hosted countless Hollywood legends before him. The Chateau Marmont has always been a place where stars go to hide. Built in 1929, it was designed to look like a French castle, a refuge for the rich and famous seeking privacy. Bungalow 3, in particular, had a reputation for discretion and for dark deeds. On the night of March 4th, Belushi was visited by a series of people, friends, dealers, hangers-on. Among them was a woman named Kathy Evelyn Smith. The next afternoon, Belushi's friend and personal trainer found him dead in Bungalow 3. He was lying on the bed, unresponsive. A speedball, a mixture of cocaine and heroin, was later determined to be the cause of death. The coroner ruled John Belushi's death an accidental overdose, but the circumstances surrounding it have never fully satisfied investigators or fans. Kathy Evelyn Smith later admitted to injecting Belushi with the fatal speedball. In a 1982 interview with the National Enquirer, she famously said, "I killed John Belushi. I didn't mean to, but I'm responsible." She later recanted, then pleaded no contest to involuntary manslaughter and served 15 months in prison. But here's what troubles true crime researchers. Smith wasn't alone with Belushi that night. Several people came and went from Bungalow 3. Some stayed for minutes, others for hours. And the question has always been, who else was there? The early 1980s in Hollywood were a time of unprecedented excess. Cocaine flowed freely, stars partied with impunity, and the lines between recreation and danger blurred beyond recognition. Belushi's death was a wake-up call, a moment when the industry had to confront the reality of what drugs were doing to its brightest stars. But for those who look deeper, Belushi's death also represents something else, a moment when secrets were buried. Was Kathy Evelyn Smith the only person responsible? Or was she a scapegoat, someone who took the fall while others more powerful walked away? In 2026, 44 years after John Belushi's death, the case is legally closed. Kathy Evelyn Smith served her time and died in 2020. The others who were in Bungalow 3 that night have never been charged. But the dark history of Bungalow 3 at the Chateau Marmont remains. It's still there, still bookable, still standing as a monument to the excess and tragedy of Hollywood's golden age of decadence. John Belushi checked into the Chateau Marmont in March 1982. He never checked out, and the full truth of what happened in that bungalow died with him. December 11th, 1964. The Hacienda Motel, Los Angeles. Sam Cooke was 33 years old, at the absolute peak of his powers. He was the king of soul, a voice that could melt hearts and move mountains. You send me, a change is gonna come. Cupid. His music had defined an era and inspired a generation. He was also a businessman, a savvy operator who had founded his own record label and publishing company at a time when black artists were routinely exploited by the music industry. He was on the verge of something even bigger. On the night of December 10th, Cooke was at a nightclub in Los Angeles. He left with a woman named Elisa Boyer. According to Boyer, he was drunk and aggressive. According to others, he was just being Sam. Boyer later claimed that Cooke drove her to the Hacienda Motel on Figueroa Street, a seedy establishment in a rough part of town. She said she feared for her safety, that he was forcing himself on her. At the motel, Boyer grabbed her clothes and ran from the room. Cooke, wearing only a sports jacket and one shoe, chased after her. He went to the motel office, demanding to know where she was. The motel manager, Bertha Franklin, said Cooke was angry and belligerent. She claimed he grabbed her, that she feared for her life. Franklin had a gun. She fired 3 times. Sam Cooke was hit once in the chest. He died at the scene. Bertha Franklin claimed self-defense. The police believed her. The coroner's jury ruled it justifiable homicide. Case closed. But from the very moment the news broke, no one believed it. This is one of the most controversial and unsolved Hollywood homicides, a case that has spawned countless theories and investigations. Here's what doesn't add up. First, Sam Cooke was not a violent man. Those who knew him described him as calm, professional, controlled. The idea of him physically attacking a motel manager in a rage doesn't fit his character. Second, there were inconsistencies in the accounts. Elisa Boyer's story changed multiple times. Bertha Franklin's story also shifted. And the police investigation was, at best, cursory. Third, there was money. Cooke was carrying thousands of dollars in cash that night. It was never recovered. Fourth, there was the missing evidence. The motel register for that night disappeared. Key witnesses were never interviewed. And the single bullet that killed Sam Cooke, where did it come from? Who really fired it? Over the years, numerous theories have emerged about Sam Cooke's death. Some believe it was a mob hit, that Cooke had refused to sign over his publishing rights to powerful figures in the music industry, and they wanted him silenced. Others believe it was a setup, that Elisa Boyer was working with Bertha Franklin, luring Cooke to that motel for reasons that had nothing to do with self-defense. Still others point to the racial climate of 1964, a time when a successful black man who refused to stay in his place could be seen as a threat to the established order. Sam Cooke's death sent shockwaves through the music world. He was 33 years old, with so much more to give. His song, "A Change Is Gonna Come," became an anthem of the civil rights movement, a haunting premonition of his own end, recorded just months before his death. In 2026, 62 years after Sam Cooke was shot dead at the Hacienda Motel, the official cause remains justifiable homicide. Bertha Franklin lived until 2003, maintaining her self-defense story until the end. Elisa Boyer lived until 2018, never deviating from her account. But for millions of fans, and for true crime investigators who've looked at the evidence, the questions remain. Sam Cooke checked into the Hacienda Motel on December 11th, 1964. He never checked out, and the full truth of what happened in that room may never be known. One of our viewers put it perfectly. This is one of the most controversial and unsolved Hollywood homicides, involving a shooting that many believe was a setup. And in 2026, that belief is as strong as ever. We return now to where we began, to the Cecil Hotel, and to a case that has haunted the internet for over a decade. January 26, 2013. Elisa Lam arrived in Los Angeles from her hometown of Vancouver, British Columbia. She was 21 years old, a student at the University of British Columbia, and she was embarking on a solo adventure, a week of sightseeing and exploration in Southern California. She checked into the Cecil Hotel, not the nicer, rebranded section called Stay on Main that occupied part of the building, the original Cecil, with its decades of death and decay. For the first few days, Elisa was the picture of a happy tourist. She posted photos on social media. She called home. She seemed excited about her trip. Then, on January 31st, the day she was scheduled to check out, Elisa Lam vanished. When Elisa missed her flight home, her family panicked. They contacted the LAPD. Detectives searched her room. They interviewed staff. They found nothing. And then, they released footage that would captivate and terrify the world. This is the last known footage of Elisa Lam alive. It was taken on January 31st, inside an elevator at the Cecil Hotel. Watch closely. Elisa enters the elevator. She presses multiple buttons, floors 14, 10, 8, 7, 4, and the lobby. The doors should close. They don't. She steps out into the hallway, looking around frantically. She waves her arms. She appears to be talking to someone, or something, that we can't see. She hides in the corner of the elevator, peering out as if someone. She steps out again, waving her arms wildly. And then she disappears from frame. For 2 weeks, no one knew what happened to Elisa Lam. On February 19, 2013, hotel guests began complaining. The water pressure was low, and the water tasted funny. It was black. A maintenance worker went to the roof to investigate the water tanks. He climbed a ladder to the top of one of the tanks. He looked inside. He found Elisa Lam's nude body floating in the water. Her clothes and some of her belongings were in the tank with her. The tank had been locked. There was no easy access. How did a 21-year-old woman get inside a locked water tank on the roof of a hotel? The coroner's report classified Elisa's death as accidental drowning. They found no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of sexual assault, no drugs or alcohol in her system. But the manner of death? That's where it gets strange. On the autopsy report, both boxes, accident and undetermined, were checked. Later, they were crossed out to just indicate accident. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and took medication for depression and anxiety. Her family later revealed that she'd been off her medication for a while. Some experts suggested she may have been experiencing a psychotic episode when she entered that elevator. But that doesn't explain how she got onto the roof. The roof door was alarmed. It would have sounded if opened. No alarm was triggered. The water tank was several feet high, taller than Elisa, with a heavy lid. To get inside, she would have had to climb a ladder, open the lid, and lower herself in. Could someone in the midst of a psychotic episode manage that? Possibly. But why would they? And if she drowned accidentally, why were some of her belongings also found in the tank? Why were her clothes floating beside her? In the years since Elisa's death, the internet has spawned countless theories. Some pointed to the elevator game, an internet myth about a ritual that supposedly takes you to another dimension. Others suggested she was possessed. Some believed she was murdered and the scene staged. But here's where we are in 2026. Despite advances in forensic technology, despite renewed interest from true crime investigators, despite DNA analysis that wasn't possible in 2013, no new evidence has emerged. The LAPD still classifies Elisa's death as accidental. Her family still believes there's more to the story. And the Cecil Hotel, now fully rebranded as Stay on Main, still stands, its water tank still on the roof, holding a secret that 2026 cannot crack. As our viewers have noted in countless comments, Elisa Lam's case is the definitive, mysterious hotel death, one of the most haunting mysteries in true crime history. And in 2026, 13 years after she vanished, it remains exactly that. Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26, 2013. She never checked out. And 13 years later, we still don't know exactly what happened in those final hours. What connects all 7 of these cases is what investigators call forensic gaps. The evidence that should exist but doesn't. And in some cases, something even more disturbing. Evidence that was deliberately suppressed. In Bob Saget's case, the gap is the severity of the trauma in a carpeted room, the missing surveillance footage, the unaccounted hours. In David Carradine's case, the gap is the investigation itself, the compromised scene, the missing evidence, the questions that Thai authorities never fully answered. In Whitney Houston's case, the gap is the timeline, the hours between when she was last seen and when she was found, the unanswered questions about who was with her and who supplied the drugs. In John Belushi's case, the gap is the others in that bungalow, the people who came and went, the secrets that died with him, the question of whether Kathy Evelyn Smith acted alone. In Coco Chanel's case, the gap isn't about the death itself. It's about the secrets she took with her, the wartime activities, the high society connections, the deals that kept her empire intact. In Sam Cooke's case, the gaps are everywhere. The missing money, the changing stories, the cursory investigation, the single bullet that ended a life and silenced a voice that should have sung for decades more. And in Elisa Lam's case, the gap is the roof, the alarmed door that didn't sound, the locked tank that somehow opened, the final moments that no camera captured. And then there's the role of the hotels themselves, and the industries that surround them. In case after case, we see the same pattern. Hotel management delaying police access, cleaning up rooms before investigators arrive, allowing guests to leave without being questioned. In the Cecil's case, management has changed hands multiple times. Records have been lost. Staff have moved on. The institutional memory of what happened in those rooms has been deliberately eroded. In the Chateau Marmont's case, discretion is the entire point. The hotel built its reputation on keeping secrets. Bungalow 3's dark history is part of its mystique, but also part of its silence. Non-disclosure agreements have kept witnesses silent. Hotel lawyers have blocked investigators. Public relations teams have spun narratives that had nothing to do with the truth. The forensic gaps aren't always accidents. Sometimes, they're features of a system designed to protect the brand. Not the victims, not the truth, just the bottom line. Hollywood cover-ups and mysterious homicides. That's what our viewers search for. And in these 7 cases, we see exactly that pattern. Evidence that disappears, witnesses who clam up, investigations that go nowhere, and families left without answers. So here we are in 2026. Forensic technology has advanced beyond anything available when these cases occurred. DNA that was once impossible to extract can now be read from a single cell. Facial recognition software can identify people from grainy photographs. Genetic genealogy has cracked cases that went cold for decades. And yet, these 7 cases remain unsolved. Bob Saget's case, officially closed as accidental. But the online community continues to question the blunt force trauma, the missing footage, the unaccounted hours. David Carradine's case, officially accidental asphyxiation. But the whispers of local underworld involvement persist. Whitney Houston's case, officially accidental drowning. But the toxic whispers and the circumstances of that bathroom scene continue to fuel speculation. John Belushi's case, officially accidental overdose. But the dark history of Bungalow 3 and the question of who else was there that night remain unresolved. Coco Chanel's case, officially natural causes, but the luxury suite and Art Deco setting of her final moments carry the weight of a lifetime of secrets. Sam Cooke's case, officially justifiable homicide, but for those who've studied it, it remains one of the most controversial and unsolved homicides in Hollywood history. And Elisa Lam's case, officially accidental drowning. But as our viewers have noted in countless comments, it remains the definitive mysterious hotel death, a case that refuses to be forgotten. 7 hotel rooms, 7 lives cut short, 7 families still waiting for answers. Bob Saget's family has accepted the official ruling, but online the questions continue. David Carradine's family fought for dignity and death. They won that fight, but the full truth of what happened in Bangkok remains elusive. Whitney Houston's family, and her daughter, who died in eerily similar circumstances, have never stopped wondering about that day at the Beverly Hilton. John Belushi's family watched as the decadent decade swallowed their son and brother. Bungalow 3 still stands, still holding its secrets. Coco Chanel's empire continues, but the secrets she carried, the wartime activities, the high society connections, died with her in that suite at the Ritz. Sam Cooke's voice still plays on radios around the world, but the question of who really killed him and why has never been fully answered. And Elisa, whose face launched 1,000 internet theories, remains frozen in that elevator footage, forever waving at someone we cannot see. These cases remind us of something uncomfortable, that hotels are liminal spaces, places between home and away, between public and private. You're surrounded by hundreds of people, yet utterly alone. You lock your door, but you have no idea who has a key. Behind every velvet curtain, behind every double-locked door, behind every "Do Not Disturb" sign, there could be a story, a tragedy, a mystery waiting to be solved. The forensic gaps, the missing footage, the suppressed reports, the witnesses who never came forward, the investigations that went nowhere. These are the threads that connect all 7 cases, and the reasons they remain unsolved in 2026. The next time you check into a hotel room, take a moment to look around. Think about who might have been there before you. Think about what might have happened in that room. And if something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Because for Bob Saget, for David Carradine, for Whitney Houston, for John Belushi, for Coco Chanel, for Sam Cooke, for Elisa, for all of them, that hotel room was the last place they ever called home. If this documentary kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button. It helps more true crime fans discover these forgotten cases. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Now, here's your chance to vote. Which of these 7 hotel room deaths feels most like a cover-up? Drop a number in the comments. 1. Bob Saget. 2. David Carradine. 3. Whitney Houston. 4. John Belushi. 5. Coco Chanel. 6. Sam Cooke. 7. Elisa. I read every single comment, and your input fuels our next investigation. So tell me, which case haunts you the most? Which one do you think holds secrets that haven't been uncovered? And before you go, check that hotel room door. Make sure it's locked. You never know who might be in the hallway. This has been a production of the Celebrity True Crime Channel. We'll see you next time when we unlock another set of mysteries.